All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this Student Government Association debate. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Beth Barnes, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Integrated Strategic Communication in the College of Communication and Information, and I'll be serving as the moderator this evening. Please join me in welcoming the candidates, Ben Childress and Elizabeth Foster. And Fletcher Lyon and Ross Bogus. Let me just briefly review the rules for the debate. The candidates are already aware of all of this. We have a timekeeper, a very skilled timekeeper, who will be making sure that the candidates stick to their allotted time. After the opening statements by the candidates, I will be asking questions, and we will alternate the answering order between the candidates. The candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, followed by 2 minutes for the other ticket to give their answer, and then each ticket will have an additional 1 minute for a rebuttal if they wish to do so. And then at the end of the debate, each ticket will have up to 3 minutes to make a closing statement. The initial order was determined by a coin toss, and Ben and Elizabeth will be going first. You'll have 3 minutes for your opening statement, and then Fletcher and Ross will make their opening statement, and then we'll move to the questions. And I want to point out that the questions were not developed by me, but they were developed by students. So, Ben and Elizabeth.
For Barnes and to Grayler and Nick and Ashley and everyone who put this together. My name is Ben Childress. I'm a junior economics major, and I currently serve as the vice president for the Student Government Association.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Foster. I'm a junior studying electrical engineering, and I'm currently the chief of staff for student government. As you can tell, Ben and I have a pretty extensive amount of experience within student government, and we truly believe that experience matters when it comes to student government. We know how to affect real change on campus, and we know what is feasible when it comes to change. When we come before you and talk about our ideas tonight, the ideas we have are ideas that can truly happen here on campus, and we know exactly how we plan to implement those.
Yes, and I'll give you all a quick kind of overview of our broad ideology of what we'd like to see for student government. We've worked really hard on this in the last year, and we'd love to continue. Thank you. See student government become a place where folks from different sides of campus can connect, almost a vessel that unites the different areas and the folks with different backgrounds. And so that's what we want to create, and we think we have a great potential to kind of form a foundation that could carry forward in the future for this.
We truly believe in students, and we believe in representing the student voice here on campus. We want to enrich the student experience by providing quality programs and looking at current SGA programs to see what is truly beneficial to students. We want to empower students to have meaningful conversations with different people all across campus. And we want to advocate on behalf of the student voice to administrators in all areas. We believe in students, and we believe in you, and we believe in representing your voice across campus.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Fletcher and Ross.
Hello, my name is Fletcher Lyon. I'm running for student body president right here at UK for a lot of different reasons. I think that UK really has a lot of potential that is untapped. There are a lot of things that we can do differently at the University of Kentucky, and a lot of our ideas are very big ideas, things that are going to take a lot of work in order to achieve, but we're going to try. And that's the thing we've been telling people on campus is we're going to try. Whether they listen or whether they don't, we're going to try because compromise is made when people start talking. The first thing that we would really like to see changed is the tuition. There's a lot of things that we're paying for at the University of Kentucky that students aren't exactly happy about. One of those things is the $88,000 logo that we just purchased. That money could have been spent more wisely, and we could have had a student here at the University of Kentucky in the graphic design department do that for the university. So we need to start using the resources that we have right here at the University of Kentucky in order to make our experience more affordable for all students. We will not vote to raise tuition with the Board of Trustees. The second thing is a wet campus. we are the only SEC school in the nation that still really enforces a dry campus. We're not the only dry campus, but we're the only one that really makes it a thing. So we believe that by bringing parties on campus to a familiar location, it is a safer environment for people because we can set guidelines. I think that when the university is making the guidelines for people to follow for social events, it comes in a lot, it's a lot safer than having 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds take care of setting up events. So we think a wet campus would not only make it safer at UK, but it would also make it a more social environment, a more inclusive environment, because people would be able to go around and get to know people. So.
Yeah, we wanted to listen to what the students wanted improved at UK before we developed our platforms. One of the main things we heard was parking and transportation. Parking and transportation does a great job with what they have, but they needed to hear from students. That was one of the things when I met with the Parking and Transportation Advisory Committee. We started looking at ways to redesign parking so it works for people on North Campus as well as South Campus. We're going to make sure that students are put as a priority because within the past couple years, students have given up more parking than any other group on campus. And we also want to make sure that student government is reflective of the student population. That is about ideas, that is about demographics, and it goes back to, we just wanted to listen to what students wanted, and we found that a lot of groups did not feel like that they were adequately represented in the past student governments. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea behind, yeah.
Thank you. So next we'll be moving into the question portion of the debate. And I would really encourage the candidates to be as specific as possible in your answers, because in addition to our audience here with us in Memorial Hall, this is also being streamed on WRFL, and so lots of potential voters are listening. And I'm sure they'd like to know exactly what you all have in mind. So the first question will be answered first by Fletcher and Ross. And that question is, how could SGA better represent University of Kentucky students?
So we believe that a community can be made through SGA. We would like to expand and make sure that all ideas are heard rather than just a few voices. We want to make sure that students of every organization on campus are represented in some facet with SGA. And we'd like to create a board of students in order to do that with SGA so that we can have a monthly meeting so that students can come together and talk about the things that are important to them. Because as a white student, I don't understand the struggles that other minorities are facing here at the University of Kentucky. So by bringing in people who do understand that, they can advocate and make their voices heard. I believe that in order to be a true leader, you have to have a team behind you. So a collective action is far bigger than just a single action.
And we don't want to have it be, you can come to SGA if you want. We want to seek out those ideas and meet people where they're at. We don't want them to feel like the past student government administrations, just because they had a bad taste from that, means that they're going to have a bad taste forever.
Thank you.
Same question. How could SGA better represent University of Kentucky students?
Great, thank you so much. And this is a fabulous question, one that we've actually been working on for really the last couple of years. And the best way that I see that student government can represent students is, in my opinion, not just having people on panels, because we've tried things like that, and people just lose interest and they don't feel like their voices are being heard. The best thing I think we can do is make sure and work to make sure that folks that are involved in student government on the Senate side and the executive side come from different areas of campus. So we've worked really hard in the last year and actually have implemented election legislation reform that I'm really proud of, and I think has removed a lot of the barriers of entry that have prohibited individuals and students from smaller organizations from getting involved. The next step for us is to earn back that trust. I think that SGA has lost over the years from students from smaller organizations, and I think we have to do that through personal outreach and personal relationships.
We currently have a program called the Student Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion, and it's one that we are working really hard with to build real relationships with leaders and organizations all across campus. And part of that is bringing to the table people who have very different outlooks on the conversations that need to be had. Ben and I are dedicated to bringing all different types of people to the table to have conversations. My sophomore year, I created a program called Listen and Lobby, and essentially we went to residence halls all across campus, and we spoke to students as they entered the residence hall and as they left about issues they saw on campus. That's a program Ben and I are looking to expand so that we can continue to get input from the student voice. We want to make sure that we can take that to college lobbies and important places all across campus so that students know that their voices are being heard and being represented within student government.
Thank you.
Fletcher and Ross, do you have a rebuttal? No? All right. Then the next question, and Ben and Elizabeth, you'll be answering this one first. How will you ensure transparency of SGA to the student body?
My specific position that I'm running for with student body president on the board of trustees, one of the biggest things I think that we can do, and I've seen that we can improve upon, is to make sure that the student population in general knows about what's happening on the highest levels of our university decision making. So I would love to work with folks in the Kernel and other avenues with emails and listservs after every board of trustees meeting to kind of just give a debrief and make sure that the student population knows what's going on. And Elizabeth, do you want to talk about our other stuff?
Student fees?
Yeah. Thank you.
So I currently serve as the chair of the Student Fee Allocation Committee, and something that I see a lot of students have questions about is tuition and student fees. I am currently revising that entire process to where student organizations, when they're applying to for student fees, have a better understanding of how the process works, what student fees mean, who even gets student fees, and how they're utilized to better affect students all across campus.
Yeah, and another thing that I forgot to mention that we want to utilize is with the Director of Finance position, we want to add on an aspect that's an auditor for any student fee receiving organization, and we want to start with student government. And so that person would be making sure that student fees are being spent wisely, correctly, and in a responsible manner. But again, that wouldn't just be for student government. You know, we believe in transparency for any place that your tuition dollars are going.
Thank you. So Fletcher and Ross, same question. How will you ensure transparency of SGA to the student body?
Absolutely. Currently, students receive a quarterly report, and it's something that you kind of have to seek by going to the website of SGA. So we think that it needs to be a weekly update. We need to let students know what's going on when it happens. And we've talked to the Kernel about possibly creating a weekly update with them so that students are aware of what's going on. Another reason that SGA lacks in transparency is only 10 to 15% of the student body votes for this election because they don't know what's going on. A lot of students don't know what's going on until we tell them we're running. So by advocating more for the things that SGA is doing and letting students know and listening to students and letting them advocate to us, we believe that people will be more participated and more civically engaged here at the University of Kentucky, and it'll make student government more transparent.
Yep. Transparency is one thing, but meeting the students where they're at in their inboxes and posting bulletins of those weekly updates is one of the best ways for marketing and communication. That is something that when we do look at the fees, engineering has lab fees. My brother's paid almost $9,000 in those fees, but it's not clear where those exactly go to, if that's covering the exact cost, if that's covering less, if that's covering more. We want to investigate that. We want to do something. That was because another student had come to us, talking to us, asking, well, where does this go? And we're like, we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you. No rebuttal? Okay. Thank you. See how friendly they are? They don't want to argue with each other. All right. The third question, and Fletcher and Ross, you'll be first to answer this. As student body president, you will sit as a voting member of the Board of Trustees. How will you ensure that students are represented in a fair and holistic way?
So one of the things that I'd like to do as student body president to ensure that students are heard by the Board of Trustees is to create a board of students to go through and look at the budget and find the things that we can do without. Like I've said earlier, there's a lot of things that we don't know our money's being spent on. We're the students that fit the bill. But I believe that by bringing students' opinions to the Board of Trustees for them to consider will help us create a better, more affordable college experience. So it's important that it's not just the Board of Trustees that are knowing about what's going on with our tuition dollars. We want to make sure everybody does.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Ben and Elizabeth, same question. As student body president sitting on the Board of Trustees, how you will make sure that students are represented fairly and holistically?
Yes, absolutely. I already mentioned one thing. That's kind of a post-game operation for the Board of Trustees, kind of letting students know what's going on. I would also like to operate and work with students beforehand with the Board of Trustees meetings and try and target specific questions that are going to be talked about during these meetings and try and gather as much student input using our resources that we have, like the Student Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion and the other networks that we have. Another thing that I think will be key in this is utilizing our all-student survey. Right now, I think we get about 4,000 or 5,000 respondents from students across campus, a really good, I think, spread demographic-wise all around that's representative of our student population. Really, I want that to be our base that we go forward and we make our decisions by and we represent students by. I think we have a lot of really good data from that survey, and if we let that kind of be our driving force in the votes that we make on the Board of Trustees or the things that we say, I think that is a fair representation of our student population as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a rebuttal.
I'm not really sure how looking at the budget is a post-game operation. I think that we look at the budget before we vote on it. By making sure that people know what's in that budget before we vote on it, we're going to make it more transparent and make sure that it serves students better. So let's get more proactive with looking at the lines on the budget and looking at last year's budget to figure out what we can do better. So I don't think it's a post-game operation at all. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the response.
Yeah, just to clarify, I was referencing my own idea, not yours. Does that make sense? So I don't think that that's a post-game operation either. I think that working with the Colonel and giving emails about what we talk about in the Board of Trustees meetings is a post-game operation as far as those meetings go, but just to clarify that.
All right, we'll move on now to the fourth question, and Ben and Elizabeth, you'll start on this one. Based on what happens in the state legislature, student tuition increases are probably inevitable. What are some strategies you will utilize to ensure the students will benefit most from these increases, if indeed they happen?
Thank you so much. And that is, it's an unfortunate circumstance with rising tuition costs, I think, for all of us. And we both pay tuition, and it takes a big chunk of our pockets for sure. And so I want to say right now, just for the record to be straight, I will vote against raising tuition because I think that's what the student population wants. With that being said, you've already mentioned how the state legislator continuing cutting the budget kind of gives us kind of a grim outlook as far as that's concerned. I am hopeful for other means that we can try and lessen the burden of college for students. One of my favorite things that student government does is with their child care grants. During the last year, we've expanded those, and we both hope to expand that even further to try and target the students that are taking full-time classes and trying to raise a family, which can be a huge financial burden, a lot of stress, and try and lessen that with these child care grants. We also hope to expand student organization grants as well. The current student organization grants that go out to folks through SGA really help lessen the burden of all sorts of conferences, traveling arrangements, and things like that. And we think there are a lot of little ways that student government can help other than just advocating for lower tuition with the administration.
Additionally, with the Student Fee Allocation Committee that I mentioned earlier, I, in that reformation process of going through and looking at how it's run, have discovered that we don't actually need to raise fees in accordance with tuition. So while tuition may be raised, student fees do not have to be raised. And in going through that process and setting the guidelines for how that committee is going to be ran, I want to make sure that students know that that is an option that can potentially alleviate some of the burden students face.
Thank you.
So Fletcher and Ross, same question. If in fact there are tuition increases, what are some strategies you'll utilize to ensure the students will benefit most from these increases?
Yeah, the state legislator, just as student government is a representation of the university, the state legislator is supposed to be a representation of Kentucky. We need to rally together and not just be University of Kentucky, but we need to be Murray State University. We need to be U of L. We need to be Moorhead and unify and say this is something that students can't do statewide, that they need to be able to support us if that's what the university students want. We shouldn't be running this reactive thing of, well, we're going to wait on the legislator and then go from there. We need to be advocating for the students to the legislators directly before it comes time to have to evaluate our university budget.
Yeah. Last spring, I served as an intern in the state senate, and I got to see a lot of this debate over the budget issue. And it's really frustrating because you look at the budget and you realize there's not really a way that they're going to stop cutting our funding. So we have to be proactive and try to make sure that they don't cut it as much as they continue to cut it. They need to be more responsible with their allocations just as much as we do. And I think that this goes along with our theme of making sure that our money is spent wisely. If we make sure that we need to forecast this to make sure that we're able to cut our budget as well, just like the state of Kentucky is doing. So.
Rebuttal?
Great. So we agree. We think it's incredibly important to be lobbying Frankfurt as well as working with the administration. Currently, we're doing some really cool stuff with our Commonwealth Leadership Reception, and we're creating for the first time ever a legislative report card to help students advocate in Frankfurt, and we'd hope to expand those services.
Yeah, additionally with that legislative report card, we're holding our legislators accountable to advocating for higher education. So essentially, when they vote in favor of higher education, they get a better score on our report card. And if they vote against higher education, they get a lesser score. And we think that that's something that's really important for students to be able to see about their legislators.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have anything to add? No? Okay. All right. Then the fifth question, and Fletcher and Ross, you'll be answering this one first. If you had to pick one issue on campus to improve, what would it be and how would you do it through your role in student government?
I think if there's one issue that we see as being a very vital part of making the University of Kentucky a better place, it's probably the parking or the wet campus. But I would say the parking is what affects the most students. Everybody here, by and large, either parks or rides with somebody who does park. K-Lot is a 2-mile walk from Champions Court. That's not only unsafe, but it's also it's not a fun walk. So we think that by restructuring the parking system to give teachers an incentive to park at an off-campus location, to make those spots available to students that live here and park here, is a great way to make everybody's experience better here. So that's, yeah. So.
Yeah. It's also kind of shocking that up until last week when we had our first Parking and Transportation Advisory Committee, there has never been a student show up to one of those. There has always been one appointed to it, but in the history of everybody on that advisory committee, and that goes back 14 years for one of them, it said there had never been a student. And I feel that it's not that Parking and Transportation doesn't want to listen to us, it's that they just haven't heard that burdening voice in their ear saying that students need better parking.
Thank you. And Ben and Elizabeth, same question. So what would your one issue be and how would you do it through your role in student government?
Yes, well, I'll start real quickly just mentioning parking because it is a huge issue for students and I don't want to ignore that. While I've never served on an official advisory committee, I have worked with a lot of folks in the Parking and Transportation Office, as well as the Eric Monday's EVPFA office, and I have mentioned this issue many times and talked with them through this. Through our discussion is I felt that promising people more parking spots is probably an unrealistic goal. I think a better way that we can approach that is finding alternative ways to alleviate parking issues on campus. I see that through us expanding our WildCab program, which has been very successful this year, and I'm super proud of. I think that we can expand that, working with parking and transportation, get more access, lower wait times for students, and even give rides home during the week. We can also work with parking, transportation, and Lextran to get better bus routes. For different times, so a student on North Campus can take a bus and go to K-Lot, or can take a bus and go to Johnson Center.
We see that there's definitely a need for students to get where they need to go efficiently and safely. Our current president, Rowan Reed, and Ben Childress ran last year on a ticket that said that they were going to help implement a safe ride program here at UK that truly served students. And we've seen that process be implemented through their hard work throughout the summer, and that really brought that program to life. And we are really excited to continue that tradition of serving students in the transportation sector of the university, in addition to a number of other ways.
Thank you.
So rebuttal now?
We agree that more parking spaces is not the answer. We have such a gorgeous campus right now. There's really no need to add more. It's all about restructuring. We already have the spaces. It's just how we prioritize who gets them where, and where there are different zones for it. The WildCab program is a great program. I know, because I'm the director of it through, well, the WildCab director through student government. I read the memos every week when they come in with the numbers, and it's doing great. And I think that's something that we should expand, but that's not gonna fix our parking issues. It'll help some of it with our late night transportation to K-Lot and back, but very few people use it for that when you look at the location reports. There needs to be more strategic works in where parking places are placed for students and staff and commuters.
We can keep doing the same thing and busing people to their dorms and expanding ways to get people there safely, or we can give students the lots that are right beside their houses that they pay for. I think that students are more inconvenienced by parking than teachers are. We live here 7 days a week. Teachers come here 5 days a week. So it's important.
Would you guys like to respond? So I will just say, we come from a lot farther away. We need to be able to park close, but no, it's all right. Nobody likes parking on this campus, so it's fine. All right. Moving on, the next question, and Ben and Elizabeth, you will answer this one first. If elected, how would you promote and celebrate diversity on UK's campus?
Thank you so much for the question. I think, again, and I've mentioned this before, but with promoting and celebrating diversity, I think it's important, again, that we're engaging folks in student government and not just relying on things that folks just feel like they're a token for. And I think a great way to do this, again, is through personal relationship and connecting students in student government and connecting different student organizations together. I think that would solve a lot of problems in our world and on our campus if just more people talk to each other. And in thinking about ways that we can accomplish that, the thing that strikes me that so many different student organizations on our campus do so well is philanthropy. We both had the opportunity to participate in Dance Blue this last weekend, and it's an awesome, awesome event and organization for so many reasons. But one of my favorite being that you see so many different people from across campus kind of come together and unite under this awesome cause. And I think that there are ways that we can tap into that same sentiment in a smaller way. And SGA can be a conduit for that. And so not just celebrating diversity within SGA, but getting folks who are diverse with one another in background and thoughts to connect and celebrate with each other as well.
Something that's important to us too is recognizing that we are just two people with two experiences, and that there are experiences here on campus that we'll never have. It's really important to us that we hear those stories and we connect with people in all areas of campus to hear what students are experiencing on campus and understanding how we can address the needs there. Ben has mentioned it, but relationships are so important to us. And building relationships starts now, and it's something that can continue throughout our entire administration if we're elected. And it's something that we really want to see SGA become, is a place for conversations to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Fletcher and Ross, if elected, how would you promote and celebrate diversity on UK's campus?
Absolutely. So we've also been making some relationships throughout the campaign trail, and one of the things that we've heard a lot from students is that they're not encouraged to apply for these positions. An email goes out that tells people that positions are open and that you can apply for a director's position or to be involved in SGA. One of the things that we'd like to do is make that option more available. We're going to go out and we're going to use the relationships that we've created on this campaign trail to get people excited about SGA and make sure that SGA represents everyone, because it is everyone. So I like a lot of what you guys said, and I couldn't agree more with a lot of your points. We are at a time where we need to branch out and be more diverse as a student government association.
Yep. There's a lot of energy on this campus, and a lot of that has been shut out. Even with the few people that do apply for these positions, there's some people that have not been granted those positions and aren't given any other opportunity to do anything else. Whether that is a direct thing about if that shuts out certain minority groups or certain ideas, that's one thing, but we need to be able to have a place where everybody is welcomed and their energies to do good on this campus are welcomed. Because right now, we're shutting away too much good with the current system of only having few positions as directors and few positions as coordinators.
Thank you. Do you guys have a rebuttal? No? Okay, thank you. All right, so the next question, and Fletcher and Ross, you'll be first to address this. Staying with the area of diversity, but getting a bit more specific. As student government president and vice president, what legislation and/or initiatives would you sponsor in order to address the unique needs of LGBTQ students on campus?
I think we first need to listen and see what issues that there are, because us standing up here and not being able to relate directly is not going to solve an answer. That we can't say, oh yeah, this is going to be the perfect answer. We need to listen, and we know that we don't know everything, and we're going to listen to that. I think one of the first steps we need to take is seeking out those groups and asking, what are the obstacles that you're facing in the daily life? What are the big picture obstacles that you're facing? I think that'll be the first step. I don't think we should jump into legislation as our first step.
Absolutely. I think we need to make the legislation a bigger and more involved process. I think that by allowing somebody that is involved in the LGBTQ community here at UK to write that legislation, to bring their concerns to the table, to put the passion that they have as an LGBTQ student into writing a piece of legislation, and they know the issues. I'd like to see them be the ones to write the legislation, and we'll stand behind them.
Thank you. So, Ben and Elizabeth, what legislation and/or initiatives would you sponsor to address the unique needs of LGBTQ students on campus?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, again, and they made some solid points there, it's important whenever you're dealing with specific groups on campus to be in constant dialogue and working with them. One of the things that I've found working with all sorts of smaller groups on campus, or just other groups in general, is that it's really important. I think students find it really important that they feel supported by the general student population. So I think that's one of the best ways that we can support our LGBTQ community is by actively meeting with them, discussing, talking about current event issues, and showing that we support and we're there for them, because we're there for all of our students, not just the students that have the same ideas and the backgrounds as we do. Yeah.
Student government has been really supportive of building a community and a campus where all students feel welcome and comfortable. Last year, one of our coordinators, Abby Vo, worked really hard on making sure that the new Student Center would have gender-inclusive bathrooms. Just as an option, if someone didn't identify with a certain gender, they had a place where they could use the restroom. And I think it's looking at the brass tacks of things and saying, how can we make this university better for all students in all capacities, especially at their basic needs?
Yeah. And additionally, I think as far as actual legislation goes, there's a lot of power in the resolutions that student government writes and passes and debates during Senate. Those go a long way in showing the overall student government support for individuals, and I think that's part of, but part of a way that we can make this campus, a great environment for everybody.
Thank you. And we have no rebuttal. All right. So for the next question, and Ben and Elizabeth will be answering this first. As you all know, as we all know, we're in the middle of building a new student center. As representatives of the student body, how will you work to improve UK's social culture and keep students connected until we have an operational student center?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been one of the biggest, I think, struggles that we faced during the last, year and a half, ever since the Student Center's been down, is dealing with that, because that's tough. I think the administration, a lot of people have been wonderful with trying to work through that and finding alternative places where student organizations can meet. One of the biggest things I see student government doing is, one, advocating for those spaces in those areas, especially when the new student center is built and now if space is needed. And two, just through our funding and our support of student organizations. So one of the things I'm most proud that student government does is provide those funding and provides opportunities for over 100 different student organizations to put on events from all different backgrounds and all different places and travel and engage students. And that's one of the best things, and we love to see that continue and grow.
Something else we've seen that's really important in this kind of interim phase before the Student Center fully opens is making sure that we're where the people are. And the Listen and Lobby program that I mentioned earlier is our way of making sure we are talking to students and hearing their stories. Our all-student survey gives us great quantitative data to look at, but Listen and Lobby gives us the stories that we can bring to administrators and say, this is the experience students are having on campus, and this is how we think it should be addressed, or this is how the student voice thinks this needs to be addressed. It is so important to us that we continue to grow that Listen and Lobby program even when the Student Center opens. Because going into the SGA office can sometimes feel intimidating, but when we are reaching out to people and going to those people, we feel that that's how we build relationships and that that's how we build a great campus community.
Thank you. So Fletcher and Ross, how will you work to improve UK's social culture and keep students connected until we have an up and running student center?
Yeah, so the cool thing about a community is it's not based off of a building. While buildings do make it easier and they facilitate where you can build a community isn't justified purely by where you stand. It's about who is there. That's something that when we will bring together all the leaders from all the clubs that want to be involved, that's where a community can start, where another club leader will be willing to help another organization. That's when you start bridging these social groups and making the 28,000 students plus more than 28,000 students make them feel small. And Kentucky is a small community. Everybody knows everybody, and that's something that we should embrace. But we also have to realize that people feel like they may not know people on this campus. And we need to start with the individual clubs that they're involved with, but also reach out to them starting K-Week saying, hey, this is a community. And whether it's a self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever, we need to start telling them this is a community for you. It's not just based off of where you can meet.
Absolutely, I agree with Ross. The community of UK is not based on a building. It's based on where students spend time together or where students feel most like they have a common bond. So it's not really so much about a building as it is keeping students together. So one of the great things about our platforms is the Wet Campus. Although that might not be done before the Student Center is done, it's a great way for students to come together and be included in a University of Kentucky campus and community.
Thank you. Do y'all have a rebuttal? Thanks. All right. I promise this truly was the next question. And Fletcher and Ross, you will start. What are your stances on the university becoming a wet campus? And what are some potential drawbacks of a less restrictive policy? Although clearly we're all going to be partying at the Student Center, it sounds like. But
Yeah, so currently we have a moist campus because everybody loves the word moist. So we want to change that because students are adults. We make our own decisions here. The drawback to having a wet campus is things happen on campus as opposed to anywhere else. So by bringing students on to the University of Kentucky's campus for social events, you're able to have more guidelines. The university can have more control over what happens, and students will be safe. So we would like to see a place where students can come together in a lit facility so that they can get to know one another and be a community.
Yeah. Building a community starts where you can feel safe. And that's sometimes not the case when you're in a State Street kind of sketchy basement that's very dimly lit. You need to be able to have those bottom structures of the pyramid to then start building a community on campus. That's something that, for different reasons, we have a moist campus, and for a while had a very strict dry campus. But there's no reason for UK to be pushing off all the responsibilities on LFUCG when it is UK students. And there are students that are 21 and up on this campus, living in the graduate housing, and even in some of the traditional dorms.
Thank you. So Ben and Elizabeth, what is your stance on a wet campus, and what do you see as some potential drawbacks of a less restrictive policy?
Yes. Well, it's definitely a hot topic, and of course, as representatives of the student voice, if that's what the students want is a wet campus, that's what we want to work to advocate and provide. I think there's a little bit confusion when we talk about this issue. I guess you hear the word moist campus a lot, which is kind of a weird word to be addressing a university policy. But it basically shows that right now student organizations can have alcohol on campus if they go through the procedures set by the university. So they have to apply, they have to have a registered vendor that provides it, that you can't just bring like 30 racks of natty to like the student center or something. They don't let that happen. And they have to review it to make sure it's not at an inappropriate time. So right now that provides an option, albeit not a frequently used one because of the hoops that students organizations have to jump through. So if students want us to look at more of that policy, we'd be happy to do it. I know it's an extensive process of revising the student code of conduct. Getting from a dry to a moist campus took about 3 to 4 years in the past. Now, we're aware of a committee that's supposed to be looking at all of the student code revisions and analyzing those, and so we're dedicated to making sure student voice is on that committee and is advocating for the changes that students want.
Additionally, something that's very important to us when talking about the alcohol policy on UK is making sure that students understand the amnesty policy that goes with it. Ben and I were really influential in looking at the medical amnesty policy that's part of your student code of conduct and making sure that it covers students if they go to the hospital for an alcohol-related event, or if their friend takes them to the hospital, that the university, there's no negative repercussions with the university as a result of that action. And that's something we saw come to fruition, and we can continue to see positive change that really ensures the safety of all students come to fruition if we're elected in all regards.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like we have a rebuttal.
Yes, please. So that we do have a moist campus where you are allowed to have alcohol if you go through the steps, but the steps are really kind of an unreasonable option for students. So in order to have anything on campus, half of the guests have to be at least 21, and that's a pretty tough goal to meet for a student organization. I think that this is something that needs to be addressed soon. I know that Jake Ingram did a really great job whenever he was student body president in making sure that we moved to a moist campus. And he took steps to make sure that we did it quickly. I would like to see us move quickly towards this because it's something that, as I've talked to students on campus, it's something they want to happen now. And it makes students a lot safer in the end.
Thank you. Would you guys like to add rebuttal? No? Okay, thank you. All right. So the next question, Ben and Elizabeth, you'll be first to answer. And on this question, I would ask both tickets to be as specific as possible. What strategies do you have in mind to effectively use student fee money?
So being the chair of the Student Fee Allocation Committee, I know a lot about student fees, and especially being involved with the Executive Committee for Student Government, I see how our student fees are used. So in the middle of this process with student fees, I saw that there was a really great need on campus for grants that could be offered to organizations that were kind of in the middle realm where they were kind of capped at their growth potential. And I saw that we need grants funded by student government to cover operational budgets for organizations that are really seeking to grow and are doing great work on campus, but right now have no opportunity to really continue that growth. So we currently give almost $200,000 out to student organizations throughout the year to make sure that they are providing educational opportunities and really seeing growth happen. But those opportunities for funding really cap out at about $2,500, which for an organization that needs about $10,000 is really not a feasible way for them to see those dreams and those potential growth happen. So Ben and I have really looked at the budget and seen where there are excess funds and where funds can be moved to better serve students through these mid-sized funding grants.
Yeah. And additionally, just some other things that we'd love to grow and continue and implement during this next year using student fees is to continue to grow the Wildcat Wardrobe program that's actually about to launch. I think it's March 8th, next Wednesday. Super exciting. It's a free career closet for any student to use and get business professional clothing for a job interview or really whatever that it needs to be used for. Legal services that provides free consultations for students. Our Wildcat program, again, we've already talked about wanting to grow and expand that. Again, increasing child care grants for our student body and providing more funding for the Graduate Student Congress. That's one of the biggest things that I've heard during the campaign trail is graduate students wanting more of a share of the student fees since they do provide about $144,000 of our student fee money.
Thank you. Fletcher and Ross, what specific strategies do you have for using student fee money?
Yeah, so finding out what the student fees are in the first place is a super difficult process. It should be as simple as just Googling student fees UKY. And you do find a page that says we have student fees, but it doesn't give you itemized breakdown of where it is. If you do a little bit more digging, you can find out just how much there is. But there's also, even though that Elizabeth has done an awesome job with the student fee allocation committee, it isn't a welcoming committee to where students from the outside of student government are welcome to give their input unless they actively seek it out. That's not something that has been publicized through access of an all student listserv saying that this is what's in the process, what do you want?
One of the things that we've noticed on the campaign trail is that students are paying a fee for the activities that would take place in a student center, even though we don't have a student center. So one of the things I think we need to do next year is take the money that we're paying towards a student center and put that towards other things that could use funding. Put it towards student government so that student government can listen to students and make sure that they're provided for and pay them more than once a year, because as of right now, you're only allowed to apply for one donation per year from SGA.
Thank you. Okay, we have a rebuttal.
I would just like to clarify some of the student fee process. So the application to be on the Student Fee Allocation Committee went out to every student organization here on campus, and every student was welcome to apply. It was advertised on our social media and through administrative channels as well. So that is a committee that's open to student voice. And additionally, it is an open committee, and we cannot have closed meetings, especially when we're voting. So any student is always welcome to attend those meetings, and especially to give their input.
Yeah, and I also agree, Ross, with what you're saying. I think an itemized breakdown is incredibly important. We do have access to itemized breakdown of student fee money. I think we just got it online. But one thing that we do want to work on is because you bring up a good point, making sure that that's out there and I guess not hard to find for students. And we also want to work with administration in the EVPFA office and UKPR to create graphics and just give more transparency to students in a really easy to read and understand manner about where tuition dollars are being spent.
Thank you. Do you guys want to add anything? All right. For the next question, Fletcher and Ross, you'll be answering first. How do you differ from your opponents, and what expertise do you bring that should make students want to vote for you?
All right, so there's a lot of things I think that are different between our opponents and ourselves. One of the biggest things that I've noticed in our platforms is, while theirs are very feasible, ours are very big picture. And ours are going to take a lot of advocating for and a lot of work to make happen. But we're going to try. That's the least we can give our students, rather than rolling over and playing dead and pretending like things aren't issues that students are clearly on fire for right now. And we've seen that throughout the campaign trail. Students don't feel like they are adequately represented by SGA right now. We're going to make sure that students are represented for it, even if it sounds crazy. Even if it's a lot of different things, we're going to make sure that everything that students want is at least heard by the administration, because that's where compromise happens.
Yeah. We're very untraditional in the way that we don't see a reason to do things just because we've done it in the years past. We want to restructure how directors and coordinators are done, so we're not shutting out energies that want to make UK a better place. That's something that past administrations have had the chance to do, but Fletcher and I have both been shut out by the chance to have a higher position to do good on this campus.
Thank you. Ben and Elizabeth, how are you different from your opponents, and what expertise do you bring that should make students vote for you?
Yes, thank you. Well, I think our opponents already mentioned it, but I think the big place where we're different is experience. We've gotten to interact with the administration and with faculty and staff and build those relationships and get a really clear picture about where we can spend our time and resources to have an actual impact on students. And where I think, talking about issues pertaining to wet campus, parking, and tuition are all incredibly important and things we're dedicated towards, we can't stop there, because I'm not confident that those things are going to change drastically. That's going to improve student life here on campus. I think we need to look in other ways and be creative with how we're addressing those things. And I also am just curious, we've talked a lot about representation in student government, and I would just love to hear specifics about how you all would change representation on student government to other than what we've already talked about tonight, and how you would restructure our executive branch, because those are two things I would love to hear your input on, especially for that.
Thank you. Fletcher and Rosh, you want to?
Yeah, so we're going to make SGA bigger. SGA needs more areas available for students to get involved in, because there's a lot of students at the University of Kentucky who have really tried to get involved in SGA but haven't had a chance to because there's not enough positions. So we want to make it bigger, make it serve more people. And also, I noticed that your platform last year had something to do with a syllabus bank. How long does it take to make sure that we get a syllabus bank at the university? So while a lot of your ideas are feasible, if you can't get certain things done that you've promised last year, why not shoot for something a little bit bigger to try to make things what students want, even if it's a little bit crazy? The radical people in this world are the people that make the biggest difference. So,
Thank you.
Hi, so in my role as Chief of Staff, I work day in and day out with all of our directors and a good amount of coordinators within student government. And so I know that there is room for reform in how things are structured, and Ben and I are actually planning on adding 2 director roles should we be elected vice president and president. We want to see a director of technology position created, and we also want to see a director of Wildcat Wardrobe created. And we think that those are things that do give people more opportunity to be involved in student government, but it comes from an aspect of us having the experience to know where that change is needed and how that change can really be fully effective.
Yeah, and to quickly try and answer your question, I know we don't have a lot of time, except one thing that we've learned is a lot of the initiatives and the goals that we set forth are multi-year processes. And working with Faculty Senate and pushing through legislation that big takes a lot of time, and we're still working on it, and I think with the groundwork we've put in this year, hopefully we can continue and achieve it. I'll let it go, I'm out of time.
Thank you. So that concludes the questions. So we will now move to the closing statements. And Ben and Elizabeth, you will be first. You have up to 3 minutes to give your closing statement. Last chance before polls open tomorrow to convince people to vote for you.
Closing statement, so I can tell you all something. I think just real generally, thank you all for coming out and listening to us speak. We love people. I think that's one thing that we both agree on. We love working with people. That's why we're doing this. Neither of us has any desire to be in politics later in life. And we love this campus. You know, I've grown up in Lexington. I've grown up around this campus. You know, my parents met here. Like literally my whole family goes here. And it's given so much to us. And I've enjoyed every minute of getting to serve in student government and getting to serve my everybody through that. And I would just love the opportunity to continue to do that and continue to try and work to unify this campus more, improve students' life through working with Faculty Senate and using our student fees wisely, and any other resource that I have in my disposal.
Ben and I are both really passionate about serving the communities that we see ourselves in. So the University of Kentucky community is one that we're a part of, and we want to see that community really come together to support one another. Has been said, we're passionate about people, and while we don't want to go into politics, we want to continue serving people and whatever our futures hold for us. I think that that's something important to know. Beyond anything that we could ever do, we want to listen to students, and we want to see those goals and those dreams come to fruition. Ben and I are just here before you as a humble servant to you and to your student voice. We want to make sure that what you want and the thoughts that students have the opportunity to come to fruition with leaders who have the experience to make those dreams happen.
Yeah. So thank you, Ross and Fletch, for respectful debate. Thank you for everybody who put this together, and we'd appreciate your support tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Fletcher and Ross with their final statement.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, Ben and I have a very similar story. My parents met at UK. My family's gone to UK. And it's a community that UK is not just the perimeter of this central campus. It's what the engineering campus is in Paducah. It's the farmland that is all across the state that's used as experimental land. And it's the pride that most Kentuckians have for UK. And that's something that we're totally excited to serve. And it's, I get too excited.
So we're in this to serve as well. We really want to make the University of Kentucky a better place for everyone here. And, you know, I might not have a lot of experience in Student Government Association, but I have a lot of experience as a student here. And a lot of other students have a lot of experience as students here, and they want to make their voices heard. They've experienced their voices being silent the last few years. So we've heard the ideas of students. We've gone out, we've campaigned, we've shaken hands. We've just, you know, gone to Bowman's Den and gotten to talk to students. That's where the real ideas come into play, and that's where we hear what students want said. So, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight. I want to thank Ben and Elizabeth as well. It was great to see you guys, and it's been a lot of fun just getting to be a part of the University of Kentucky, building relationships, and finding ways that we can be a better community. It's been an awesome ride, and I look forward to seeing how everything turns out Thursday and seeing SGA move forward as well as the University of Kentucky. So thank you.
So again, thank all of you for being here, and please join me in thanking our candidates for their thoughtful answers to the questions. Thank you. And again, they are Fletcher Lyon and Ross Bogus, and Ben Childress and Elizabeth Foster. Thank you all. So voting is tomorrow and Thursday. Please vote, and please encourage your friends to vote, because if you don't vote, you can't complain later. It's true. But again, thank you all for being here.